truly, a lot of the personal development industry will try to sell you these like work from home, be an influencer, be an online entrepreneur. And the truth is that like none of them are pushing become a better investor, learn how to manage your money better. Because if you had a course that was really teaching you how to be a better investor and be a better manager of your own money, then the course will tell you don't spend $10,000 on a 5-day course. Don't do that, because you can put that because you can take 1,000 of that, give yourself some education, and then reinvest the other $9,000 in order to really start learning how to manage and play with your money and really save it. So really what I learned, through the family office school is that true freedom is in the investor quadrant. And now I think that a lot of my focus is, it's like I feel, you go from feeling like, wow, I'm doing really well, to then realizing, if you really want to be an investor, then, you need money to invest, and you need to be a lot smarter with your money because of compound interest. So a lot of my focus now is how do I really play in that investor quadrant? Because that's true freedom, right? I mean, being an entrepreneur can be fun, but also you don't want to be a slave to your business.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because most people just want to be able to pay their bills on time, right? Like,
yeah, I think that, most people do, but
and what I find is,
I think when we're around so many entrepreneurs, they're like, but yeah, you're right.
What I find is there's so many people with our mindset of, hey, we provide for our family, we want to impact our community, we want to impact other businesses to grow. Because when you impact family offices and bring the right investments, they're going to grow. They're going to be able to hire more people through the companies and the investments they make. And it's generational now. Now we're impacting a lot more lives. And I find there's so many people that are sold this like do it quick model, which there's nothing quick about. In stock market, I'm making like 40% right now in 3 months, right? But it's it's 3 months out of like 10 years. It's not going to happen for another 10 years, right? So it's interesting how many people are trying or look at the quick fix, definitely our youth today. And then they're looking at people like me and you that are building legitimate businesses, that are building legitimate relationships. And I tell people all the time, I'd love to get your feedback on this. I tell people, spend your time, go out and buy somebody coffee. Go build a relationship. Spend your 20s for figuring out what direction you want to go and building friendships and relationships, mentors, coaches. Then spend your 30s for building whatever you want. And by the time you're 40, 45, 50, you can pretty much, if you have a hustle, people are like, oh, I want to work smart, not hard. And I'm like, that doesn't work. Like there needs to be both, no matter what industry you're in, no matter how smart you are, there's somebody smarter. No matter how hard you work, there's somebody working harder. So what do you think about that for the future generations on like really planting, you're 32 and 38, planting and building relationships, opening up the right doors and building that foundation piece for our future?
Yeah, I think that we're in an interesting time because we can be so distracted by all the media that it can create due diligence is more important than ever now. So yeah, you want to make the right connections. You want to be connecting with people, but most importantly, you want to be connecting with the right people. You want to get around the right community. Because sometimes, and I've encountered it where, I think, just based off someone's profile and maybe they have some nice marketing tied to their branding, you think they have it going on, and then you really meet them and you see that it's really just a facade. And I hate calling people out and saying, that image is fake, it's false, they're lying, but it's just more prevalent now than ever. And it then leads people to feel like they have to put up that same type of image in order to get around the right people. And that's not true. You just have to know how to vet the right people. And be willing to not get caught up. So I think one of the most important things now is really learning how to not get caught up in the hype. And it's important to learn because nobody's teaching that. How to not get caught up in the hype, especially, when we're working, you work with the youth, right? So they can be more easily influenced by good or bad, right? So it's important to really teach them, how to find the right people and how to really, be able to vet well, and call out people's bullshit, or not call it out, but at least see it.
Yeah, see it and understand. I find in South Florida, I mean, you've been down here for a while. I'm down here for a while. I hear these investors give me stories of, how they were cheated or robbed or whatever it was. And it's crazy to look at that so many people are stealing from other people. So it's interesting to be able to, understand how to find the right people to invest in, or how to partner with the right people, how to, like if you introduce somebody to me, I'm going to take it that, you vetted that person to a certain extent, and I'm going to be like, awesome.
Yeah.
You vetted them. So, I will do due diligence if I do business with them, but at the end of the day, I'm going to take it a lot different than if I meet somebody off LinkedIn per se. Or
yeah, for sure.
Or Instagram.
Absolutely. And I've been in the networking game, for over a decade now. It's really been my whole career. So I'm very clear on when I do introductions, right? So even if I introduce you to someone and maybe I only have a set piece of amount of information, I'll let you know what I know, right?
Yeah.
So you're clear, because of course, that's the thing. You understand. You have to be. It's interesting because in my world, right, I get asked a lot for introductions, and I don't make them. I don't make introductions because I'm not going to put my reputation on the line, because I'm a little more cautious now, of where I'm making these introductions. And, it's I can love you like a friend, but that doesn't mean that I agree with your business philosophy. So for me to do an introduction, I wouldn't put myself in that position, with a lot of people that I love and care about, so it's because, once again, it's when you have a bigger vision in mind, then where you can take risk and where you shouldn't be taking risks.
Yeah, I love it. So let me ask you, you've done training, NLP, and I find that there are so many people today, they've got stuff going on in their life. They need direction. Obviously, you've seen what we're doing in our school. You got to speak to some of our kids and impact some of our families. What do you think? What's the future of education, do you think? I mean, what we're teaching our kids at a very young age. Give me some input on where you see education in the future, and maybe like what you've seen with us, what you've seen with other schooling or other training companies. And if we give our kids at a very young age, what it would cost for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars at a younger age, where they don't have to pay for it. Like if you had what you had today when you were in high school or middle school, like how would that have changed your life? Yeah,
that's a great question, because I think about that all the time, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. It's what upset me the most when I got introduced to personal development, is why was I not taught this, right? Because had I been taught this since middle school, first and foremost, it taught me how to learn. It taught me how to enjoy learning, right? It taught me how to use my strengths in order to absorb information and apply it. It taught me how my brain works. So I would have just been a lot better of a learner, and I would have been able to absorb and navigate the public school system a lot better, and really understand where can I leverage it the most, right? Because if you don't know, then your counselor is just going to kind of take you wherever they want, and if they don't see like great potential in you, then they're really just trying to, churn and burn, and just make sure that you at least graduate so their numbers are okay. Had I just understood a little bit more of not being afraid of rejection, asking the right questions, formulating questions in a way for people to see how it benefits them to serve you. I could have ran circles around my high school teachers and in sports and been a lot better of an athlete. So I think that the main thing that, once again, if we're talking about sales and communication, is that it taught me a lot about confidence. And it's one of the things that when I was speaking to your students that, I really saw. I saw that there's a self-esteem issue, right? There's a lack of belief in themselves. So they're just going to, if they don't build up that self-esteem, if they don't build up that confidence, then they're just going to be flowing down the river, wherever the river takes them. And then you have the mental health aspect that comes in, where then if they're triggered, then they can create mistakes that they could pay for, for a long time by being triggered. And these are all things that I learned, growing up in a dysfunctional family with, an alcoholic mother that's now been sober for 6 years, but 2 alcoholic parents, and just realizing that, along the way in high school, I lost confidence in myself. So I just kind of went with the flow and wasted a lot of time. And if I was triggered, then I could have explosive or manic tendencies that luckily, never led to any long-term consequences or repercussions, but I got lucky. You know what I mean? That's just the truth. You know what I mean? I got lucky. I got lucky where I didn't have to deal with any punishments for mistakes that I made in my early 20s, from just being emotional and anxious and angry, So I think that's the most important thing, right? Because, and once again, this goes back to communication. This goes back to sales. This goes back to empowering yourself to know that you can lead other people, that you can have your way. If you become a good communicator, if you know how to navigate people, if you know how to respond to situations versus being reactive.
So I find a lot of people don't understand themselves, so it's hard to understand others. And
exactly.
So sales is challenging. Like in school, college taught me product, price, place, promotion. Like they gave me frameworks, but at the end of the day, they never told me how to communicate. Like they were teaching me the content, not the context. So school added some value that I look at today is like, okay, how did I learn how to learn? How did I show up? How did I take notes? How did I process? But I was never taught how to learn how to learn. I was taught to learn content and then repeat it and then go on and learn more content versus really getting to know myself and building in a structure within my own life to be able to achieve what I want. So how did, through the process of you being on the road, now you're in front of a lot of very, very influential and wealthy families and executives, where did you understand how to learn how to learn? Like, where did you actually get it the first time to go, you know what, at this point, I'm going to take notes, I'm going to process, I'm a kinesthetic, I'm a visual learner. Like, how did you learn that stuff?
I think there were 2 major things. I think first was when in my network marketing career, and I was doing a lot of sales presentations and I was a team leader. So I was just selling constantly, selling to groups of 2 or 3 or in living rooms to group of 15 to 20 people. But the first time I got up on stage in front of 100 people and half the room were my peers, my competitors in essence, people that understood the presentation, people that were going to be a lot more nitpicky on my presentation, and I bombed that presentation entirely. Like bombed it hard. It was like an incredibly embarrassing experience. I ended up practically behind that projector at the end of it. I promised people a 10,000 year lifetime guarantee and like just weird. Like I messed up my numbers it was like a crash and burn for a presentation I had just done over and over again. It was really disappointing. It was embarrassing, but the